You almost certainly know someone like this. The friend, the coworker, the sibling who sits in a room full of people coughing and sneezing all winter and somehow, mysteriously, never gets sick. Everyone around them cycles through colds and flus like clockwork, and they walk through it completely untouched, year after year, like they're operating under some kind of biological exemption. It's tempting to write this off as luck or as them simply not admitting when they're sick, but the honest answer is stranger and more interesting than either of those explanations. Some people really do get sick dramatically less often than others, and the reasons involve genetics, gut bacteria, prior infections, and a surprisingly powerful factor most people never even consider: what actually happened to them in early childhood. Let's start with the immune system itself, because most people picture it as a single unified defense force, when it's actually closer to two separate systems working together, and the difference matters enormously here. The first is your innate immune system, which is fast, general purpose, and present from birth, essentially your body's first responders that attack anything that looks vaguely threatening. The second is your adaptive immune system, which is slower to respond the first time but builds specific, targeted memory against exact pathogens it's encountered before. This adaptive memory is why you generally don't get chickenpox twice. Some people appear to have a genuinely more efficient, faster responding version of both of these systems, and a meaningful part of that difference traces directly back to genetics. Researchers studying twins, identical twins who share essentially all of their genetic code versus fraternal twins who share about half, have found that immune response to things like vaccines and infections is significantly more similar between identical twins than fraternal ones. This tells us something concrete. There's a real, measurable genetic component to how aggressively and effectively your immune system responds to threats. Specific gene variations affect how much of certain infection-fighting proteins your body produces, how quickly your immune cells recognize invaders, and how efficiently your body clears out pathogens once they're identified. Some people, purely as a result of the genetic hand they were dealt, are running a more responsive, more efficient defense system than others, through no behavioral difference whatsoever. But genetics is only part of the story, and this is where things get genuinely counterintuitive. Your gut contains trillions of bacteria, collectively called your microbiome, and it turns out this bacterial ecosystem plays an enormous, somewhat surprising role in how well your immune system functions. Roughly 70% of your immune system cells are located in and around your gut, which means the bacteria living there are in constant, direct communication with the very system responsible for fighting off illness. A diverse, healthy microbiome appears to train your immune system to respond appropriately, strongly enough to fight real threats, but not so aggressively that it overreacts and causes unnecessary inflammation. People with less diverse gut bacteria, often as a result of diet, antibiotic use, or other lifestyle factors, tend to show measurably weaker immune responses across multiple studies. Your gut, essentially, is running a constant training program for your immune system, and some people simply have a better trained program running than others. Now here's the part that surprises almost everyone: early childhood exposure. There's a concept in immunology called the hygiene hypothesis, and it proposes something that sounds almost backwards at first. Children who grow up with more exposure to germs, dirt, and even certain infections early in life, particularly kids who grow up around pets, siblings, or in less sterile environments, tend to develop stronger, better calibrated immune systems as adults. The theory is that the immune system, especially in its earliest and most formative years, essentially needs training data. It needs to encounter real threats in order to learn how to correctly distinguish between something dangerous and something harmless. Kids raised in extremely sterile, over-sanitized environments sometimes end up with immune systems that are less experienced, and in some cases, this appears connected to higher rates of allergies and autoimmune conditions later on, essentially an immune system that never got enough practice and ended up either underreacting to real threats or overreacting to harmless ones. There's also the concept of trained immunity, a genuinely fascinating and relatively recent area of immunology research. For a long time, scientists assumed only the adaptive immune system could remember past threats. But newer research suggests your innate immune system, the fast, general-purpose one, can also be shaped and improved by prior exposures, becoming measurably more effective at responding to a wide range of threats, not just the specific one it encountered before. Certain vaccines and infections appear to leave the innate immune system in a heightened, more prepared state for a period afterward, essentially giving it a broader boost rather than just narrow, pathogen-specific memory. This might partly explain why some people who've simply been exposed to more over the course of their life seem to fight off new illnesses more effectively. Sleep and stress play a massive role here too, and this is genuinely one of the more actionable pieces of this whole picture. Chronic sleep deprivation measurably reduces the effectiveness of your immune response, partly because certain critical immune processes, including the production of specific infection-fighting cells, happen primarily during deep sleep. Similarly, chronic stress floods your body with cortisol, and while short-term cortisol spikes can actually be mildly protective, sustained chronically elevated cortisol has been shown to suppress immune function significantly over time. Someone who consistently sleeps well and manages stress effectively is quite literally giving their immune system better operating conditions to work with, completely independent of their underlying genetics. Age and prior infection history matter enormously too. Each virus you're exposed to and successfully fight off potentially adds to your adaptive immune system's memory bank, meaning someone with a longer, more varied history of infections may have a broader arsenal of specific antibodies ready to deploy instantly, rather than needing to build a response completely from scratch. This is part of why young children get sick so frequently. Their adaptive immune system genuinely hasn't built up its reference library yet, while a 50-year-old who's been exposed to a wide range of pathogens over their lifetime often has a surprisingly robust, battle-tested immune memory built from decades of accumulated exposure. So what does all of this actually add up to? The friend who never seems to get sick likely isn't operating on luck or secretly hiding symptoms. They're probably benefiting from some combination of genuinely favorable immune-related genetics, a healthier and more diverse gut microbiome, a childhood with meaningful and varied germ exposure rather than an overly sterile environment, consistently good sleep and lower chronic stress, and quite possibly a broader accumulated history of prior infections that's given their adaptive immune system an unusually well-stocked defensive arsenal to draw from. None of this means the rest of us are simply doomed to get sick constantly with no ability to influence the outcome. Sleep, stress management, and gut health, in particular, are genuinely modifiable, meaning the mysterious immune superpowers of that one friend who never gets sick aren't entirely a closed genetic lottery. They're a mix of factors, some inherited and largely fixed, others surprisingly within your control if you know where to actually look. So the next time you're the only one in the office reaching for tissues while everyone else seems mysteriously unaffected, it's worth remembering it's probably not luck, and it's almost certainly not because they're lying about feeling fine. It's the invisible result of genetics, gut bacteria, childhood exposure, sleep, stress, and years of accumulated immune memory, all quietly working together behind the scenes to determine something as simple seeming as who catches the office cold this week.